I sat in a room and watched my husband talk to a tortoise like it was his father, and by the time the sun rose, I understood exactly whose blood had been paying for our house. OJ, I need you to understand something. Even as you read this letter, I need you to listen with your whole spirit. Because what I'm about to tell you, I have never told a living soul. I grew up in Koforidua with nothing. My mother sold kinky by the roadside. I swore that when I grew up, I would never touch poverty again with my bare hands. By the time I was 17, I already knew how to smile to men in expensive cars. My cousin taught me. She said beauty was a currency, and I believed her. She used to take me to drinking spots in Koforidua, even though I was still a child by law. I would watch her disappear behind the building with strangers. Sometimes she came back, adjusting her clothes, counting city notes with shaking hands. I did not understand it then, only that money flowed her wherever her body went. I told myself I would never be like her, but by 19, I was doing the very same thing in different towns with different men, telling myself it was different somehow. I married young to a mechanic from Techiman, a good man, quiet, hardworking and faithful. But I looked at him and I saw a ceiling I refused to live under. I left him with barely a goodbye. I told myself I deserved more. I did not care that he cried outside our gate the night I packed my bags and drove off. I started moving with different men in Kumasi, in Accra, wherever the money smelled stronger. And then, at a private function in Takrady, I met the man I will call the Financier. He was not loud with his money. He was worse. He was quiet with it, the way only truly dangerous men are quiet. Every door opened before he even reached it. He told me he ran logistics companies across 3 regions. He told me he had investors who never wanted their faces seen. I did not ask questions. I drank the silence like a wine. He kept 2 houses, OJ, one in Cape Coast, one tucked behind a high wall outside home. He never explained why we could not simply live under one roof together. In the early months, he would summon me only at nights, always by driver, never letting me arrive in my own car. I thought it was a mystery. I called it romance. Every gift arrived wrapped in a story. A necklace because a deal closed in Tamale. A car because his partner in Sunyani had been pleased with him. I never met a single partner. I remember asking once, lightly, half jokingly, whether he was involved in anything dangerous. He smiled away men smile when they are deciding whether you deserve the truth. Everything valuable had a price attached to it. He told me, "You are simply enjoying the harvest without asking what was planted." I laughed. I thought it was just a proverb. I told myself it was business. I told myself rich men are private men. I told myself many things because the alternatives was to open my eyes. And I was not ready for that. He proposed within 8 months, not with a ring first, but with an envelope. 60,000 cedis, he said, just so you understand what marrying me is worth to me. His associate, a man who drank too much to our engagement party, pulled me aside once. He said, "Sister, ask yourself why he's so eager for a child." I laughed it off that night. I was drunk on champagne and comfort. I did not know that comfort in that house was always a down payment on something else. We married in a small ceremony in Aflao, far from both our hometowns. He said he preferred privacy. I said nothing because by then, silence had become my second language. Even after the wedding, we did not stay together every night. Some weeks he vanished to check on businesses in the north. I never once saw an office, a staff, a desk, or anything official. The car, the clothes, the new phones, every few months. It all came without explanation, like rain in a dry season. That should have made me suspicious instead of grateful. Then I got pregnant, OJ. I have never seen a man's face change so fast. Joy first, genuine joy, and then something colder sliding underneath it like a snake under a rag. He kept saying a child would settle things properly. I did not understand what needed settling. We were already married. What more did a baby need to prove? The pregnancy ended in the 9th week. I bled through the night while he sat outside the bathroom door, not comforting me, simply waiting like a man waiting for test results. He bought me a new wardrobe the next morning, not flowers, not tenderness, clothes, shoes, a new phone, as if grief could be paid off like a small debt. It happened again 4 months later, and again the year after that. Each time the same pattern: brief joy, cold retreat, sudden loss, and then gifts arriving like apologies from a stranger. My doctor in Cape Coast finally sat me down. She said my body showed no medical reasons for repeated losses. She suggested I rest, take a break, protect myself for a while. I took her advice quietly. I did something private, something to pause things in my own body without telling my husband. I needed to understand what was happening to me first. And still, OJ, I fell pregnant again. Even with precautions in place, I remember sitting on the bathroom floor staring at the test, feeling fear instead of joy for the first time. By then, the house in Ho had become my full-time home. He wanted us settled there. The walls were high, the gates were electric. The silence inside was heavier than any wall. I began driving to my mother's compound in Koforidua just to hear her noise. Children playing, pots clattering, anything human. That house of his felt like it was built to swallow sound. Even the servants he hired never stayed long. A cook would arrive, work 3 weeks, then vanish without collecting her final pay. A gardener disappeared the same way twice. I asked him once why nobody stayed. He said staff in his line of work needed discretion training, and most people could not handle the discipline. I nodded and said nothing. There were nights that I heard chantings from the boys' quarters at the back of the property, low and rhythmic, stopping the moment my footsteps got close to the door. I told myself it was radio. I told myself it was workers praying before a long shift. I told myself so many small lies that year, stacking them like furniture against a door. One night, I asked him plainly why his company always celebrated new contracts on the very day I lost another pregnancy. He looked at me like I had asked something forbidden. He did not answer. He simply refilled his glass and walked past me to the balcony, leaving me standing there with my hands still pressed against my empty stomach. I stopped asking questions out loud after that. I started asking them silently, at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of man mourns nothing and profits from everything. I began keeping a small notebook hidden inside a lotion bottle in my bathroom, writing down every date I lost pregnancy and every gift that followed within a week. The pattern never once broke. It frightened me more than any single event could have. Because patterns mean intentions, and intentions meant someone had been planning this from the very beginning. I thought about living quietly then, simply driving to Koforidua and never returning his calls. But something kept pulling me back. Comfort, fear, maybe even a strange loyalty to the lie. My mother noticed the weight I was losing on my visits. She asked if my husband was stabbing me. I told her I was simply tired from the traveling between houses. She held my hands longer than usual that day, the way mothers do when they sense something they cannot yet name. I remember driving back to home with tears I could not explain. There came the night I could not carry the weight alone anymore. I knelt on the cold tiled floor in Ho and I prayed, though I had not prayed properly in years. I did not ask for riches. I asked for truth. I said, whatever is happening in this house, whatever is hiding in these walls, let it show itself to me plainly. For days afterwards, nothing changed. He came home late, avoided my eyes, drank more than usual. But something in the air of that house had shifted, like pressure before a storm. Then came the night he returned past 2 in the morning, so drunk he could barely find the gate. I had to help him from the car myself, half carrying, half dragging him inside. He was laughing at nothing. Then he was weeping at nothing. Then he began speaking in a dialect I did not recognize, words tumbling out like they belonged to someone else entirely. I got him onto the bed. He grabbed my wrist hard and said something that froze me. That he had once sat on his own father's resting place and eaten there. I asked him what he meant. He laughed in my face and said I had no right to ask him anything that he had already given me for all this long ago. Something told me to pray over him right there, to speak his name and his father's name aloud. I do not know where the instructions came from, simply obeyed it. I fetched water from the kitchen, whispered over it, and only prayed I remembered from my childhood, and gave it to him to drink, the way you would calm a frightened animal. He drank it, then looked at me with eyes that were no longer his. The voice that came out next was lower. Lower, I did not belong to my husband. It told me it had lived inside my womb 4 times. It told me it fed there only what should have grown into my children, and called it harvest like a farmer. It bragged that every contract, every new car, every gate and generator in the compound had been bought with what it took from me, piece by piece, pregnancy by pregnancy. I told it to stop, that he was only drunk, that he needed sleep. It screamed instead, calling itself rich, calling itself untouchable, saying the money came from something they called the elder. He shouted about a debt from his hometown, one he had been settled long before I ever met him, in a room I would never be permitted to enter. Then, still shaking, still weeping between sentences, he stood and said, "Come, since you want the truth so badly tonight, follow me and see where the truth actually lives in this house." I followed him, OJ, though every part of my body told me to run instead. He led me to the nursery, where he had decorated for a child that never arrived. He opened a wardrobe I had never once touched, pulled out a covered container, and inside it sat a tortoise, still and ancient, watching us both like it had been waiting. "This is what feeds us," he said, calmer now, almost proud. "This is why you never need to work a single day since you married me. Are you satisfied now, my wife?" I could not speak, OJ. I could not scream. I stood in that nursery, built for children who never lived, staring at the thing my body had apparently been paying to feed. He laughed, closed the wardrobe, and walked back to bed like a man who had simply shown his wife a new car, not the source of 4 buried pregnancies. I did not sleep that night, OJ. I sat in the dark of that house in Ho, listening to him snore, thinking about every gift, every silence, every celebration that followed my grief. Before sunrise, I packed one small bag. I took my identity document, my phone, my car keys, and I left the compound without waking a single guard at the gate. I drove through the dark towards Koforidua, past Winneba, past small towns still sleeping, gripping the wheel like it was the only honest thing left in my life. My mother opened the door and saw my face and asked no questions that night. She simply held me, and for the first time in years, I let myself shake completely. I stayed indoors for almost 2 weeks, refusing calls, jumping at every knock on the gate. My mother burned herbs in the compound each evening, though neither of us said why. I finally told her everything: the wardrobe, the voice, the 4 losses, all of it spilling out at once like a dam that had held far too long against its own weight. She did not call me foolish. She simply nodded slowly, the way people nod when suspicion they have carried silently is finally confirmed by someone else's mouth. She told me stories from her own childhood in the Volta region of men who grew rich overnight and grew strange alongside their riches, and how their wives always seemed to disappear from themselves first. I never went back for my things. I never returned his calls. Word reached me later that a house in Ho had new tenants within months, as if nothing had happened. He never once looked for me, OJ. No calls, no messages, no demands for the car, nothing. A man who once tracked my every movement simply let me vanish without protest. Sometimes I wonder if it was ever me he wanted at all, or simply what my body could be made to carry, quietly, in a house built for silence and loss. A year later, a distant relative told me she had seen him in Kumasi, driving a different car with a different young woman seated beside him, laughing at something on his phone. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not jealousy, not relief, not a door recognition, like watching the same weather pattern move towards another town after leaving your own roof in ruins. I have not told this story to any pastor, any prayer camp, any deliverance minister. I do not know if I even want it prayed away. Some things you simply learn to carry. I still keep that small notebook from the lotion bottle, the dates written in my own shaking handwriting. I do not know why I have never thrown it away. I still dream of the nursery sometimes, still see that container in the wardrobe, still wonder what the elder received in the end and what is still owed. I do not know where he is tonight. I do not know if another woman is sitting in the house somewhere in the country, confused by gifts that arrive after every kind of grief. I think about her sometimes, wherever she is, wherever her house sits. I think about whether she has found a wardrobe of her own yet, or whether hers is still sealed shut. I want to warn her, OJ, but I do not even know her, her name, her town, or which region hides her now. I only know the shape of what was coming for her. I have learned to recognize the signs in other women since then. The sudden wealth with no visible source, the empty explanations, the house is too quiet for the money inside them. I said nothing to them either. What would I even say? That I once stood in a nursery and watched a tortoise breathe where a child should have been sleeping instead. Some truths do not comfort anyone once spoken. They simply sit in the room with you, the way that container sat in that wardrobe, patience, fed, and waiting for the next name. I am writing to you, OJ, not for comfort or closure, because there isn't any. I am writing to you because somewhere right now, that wardrobe still exists and it is still hungry. This is your anonymous OJ, and if you are new here, I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and hype this channel. And tell somebody about your anonymous OJ. I'll see you in our next conversion.